in this edition of Astrology Explains It All, I'm going to dive in a little bit more to, Aries season and how that is explaining some of the things that we're seeing, how Mars and Gemini square Neptune and Pisces is impacting some things in society. I'm also going to talk about the Lil Nas X, the Nikes. Nike did not actually release the shoes. We'll talk about that, but his Nikes that have the human blood in them and the satanic shoes, what they're calling them. We're going to talk about the astrology of it. So when I do, and I'm going to also talk about some predictions I made a couple of months ago. When I do this, I am not endorsing any celebrity. This is about what's the best story for astrology. Okay, so I want to make that very clear. Now, what I said was, so a few months ago, I was doing a video on the aspects, and I was looking at Nicolas Cage's chart, not because I'm necessarily a fan of his, but because, again, we're looking at the astrology. And so I believe it was like he has some oppositions. He has like, I believe he's a Capricorn, then he has some Cancer energy, and then he has like another Capricorn placement. And I believe it was his North Node. I was looking at something. Again, I would have to look back at the video, but I remember saying distinctly, and this is me not knowing much about him, except he's an actor. I've seen, him in movies before, but seeing how many times he had been married at the time. He'd been married 3 times, right? And I looked at his chart. I just looked at his chart. I didn't look up any current information about him. And I said in the video, and again, I have to go back and see which one that was, but I said, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets married again. A lot of people would look at that and say, oh, he's been married 3 times. That's a wrap. But actually, I looked at the chart, and just by looking at his natal chart, not even really analyzing it, I'm like, he's going to get married again. And he did. He got married about 3 weeks ago for the 4th time. So that's a way in which sometimes with astrology, you can see these things, even without knowing an individual or by simply understanding how the energy in a chart works, you can see certain tendencies. Also, the video that I have up about Saturn Aquarius and karmic, karmic energy around Saturn and Aquarius, and since Aquarius is the group, be prepared to see people who are influential or people who have status. If there is some story about them mistreating people, it's going to come out. It's going to come out in multiples. Group of people are going to say things. And so you want to check that video out. It's a recent one, the Saturn and Aquarius video that I did about the transit. So for instance, here there is, so I didn't know anything about this. This is why I say it's interesting and it's good to practice your intuition, because you don't even have to know the whole details of something to pick it up if you're an intuitive person. Me, all I need is like a line, a piece of information, and then my intuition just works overdrive when it comes to people I don't actually know. So for instance, this man, apparently it was the cinnamon toast controversy or whatever. He was basically, to make a long story short, because he's been tweeting about this. He bought some Cinnamon Toast Crunch. He noticed what he thought was shrimp tails in them. And so him and the company were going back and forth because they were trying to say it's just a bunch of sugar or cinnamon. And he was like, this, he has pictures about this. So at first it was very lighthearted. It was funny. People were tweeting about this. He also apparently is married to Danielle Fishel, who was on Boy Meets World. And, but a lot of women are coming out and saying, either through their work relationship or their romantic relationship with him, that he was emotionally abusive. And now again, these are allegations. But again, like I said before with Saturn and Aquarius, if you've harmed people, multiple people might come out. Now again, by harm, I mean, it has to be intentional. I want us to understand nobody in this world is perfect. This is not about you need to be perfect or karma is going to get you. It is about Saturn is what you have done, what you have dedicated yourself to doing. And if you have a pattern of doing something, you can definitely say you're dedicated to that, right? So that's an example of it. Again, you're going to see this multiple accusers or multiple people are going to come out if someone has been doing something and if they're in the public eye. He is like a director or a writer. I don't know much about him. I do know he is in the entertainment business though. So that is why the story got buzzed in the first place with the whole serial thing. And also why so many people are, women are coming out and saying this is their experience with him. Not just romantic partners, but women who worked for him as well as the allegations that are being shared. So before we talk about Lil Nas X and the shoes that have a drop of human blood in them, please, if you want to just hear that, go to the timestamp, but I want to explain something first. So, Mars, bloodshed. I don't really like talking about medical things. I get kind of squeamish, but I'm just going to do this astrologically. Mars energy is bloodshed. Mars is war. Okay? Mars is accidents. Again, we know Mars also this aggression and dominance, sexual prowess. Mars is a lot of things, just like all planets are. It's the planet of aggression and war. So obviously in more ancient times, there was way more war. Right before there was more civilization. In many countries around the world, there is still war. So I want us to be very careful. There are countries that have civil wars going on. There are countries that have wars between groups of people. That still happens today. This is, I want us to be clear on that. Just because some of us might not be seeing it on our physical soil, they're still around. But for most societies, it's usually not manifested in literal wars. However, the theme of life force can be seen in all of us as far as bloodshed. Obviously, we get squeamish of that. I'm squeamish of that. I love supernatural movies. I love magic movies. I have since I was a kid. I love myths and, things that are more esoteric, but I don't like the slasher films. Never was a fan of that. Don't see the point. Wow, there's blood. Like, that's just not, that's not interesting to me. But blood is a life force. And we can get metaphysical, and we could get, deeper in, and we could talk about even, women in the menstrual cycle, and then like the necessary need for shedding of blood. And that in many cultures, there was also certain things such as sacrifice. I'm not going to get into all of that, but it's not an abnormal topic is what I'm trying to say. However, what you're going to see a lot, you Google blood, go to the news, you're going to see a lot about donating blood. There's a lot of conversations right now about people who are donating blood. So there's a lot of interesting insights and conversations. What's so interesting to me is even on Facebook, I've seen at least 2 people that I personally know recently talking about donating blood. I thought, now maybe there is some big push by the Red Cross. I'm not sure about that. But it's interesting. And there's also been conversations around, again, I'm not going to talk about the controversy of vaccinations or anything like that, but there have been conversations where people are asking, well, if you got vaccinated, when are you allowed to get blood again? So that conversation is coming up as well. There's been a blood pressure medication that was recalled recently in the news. Check that out. Also, I thought this is sad, but I'm glad she survived. She's young. And this could have been really tragic. Any accident can be. This 19-year-old girl, she donated blood, but I believe she got, lightheaded, and she crashed her car driving home. She survived, luckily. Remember, Mars is accidents. Mars is war. I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't looked the article up all the way if she hit her head as well, because remember, it's Aries season. Aries rules the head. Okay, it's Aries season. Mars happens to be in Gemini. Why is that important? Gemini is short distance travel, or Gemini is related to the 3rd house. Let's be clear, because I know like a lot of times people are like, is the house the same as the sign? But Gemini is related to that locality. Okay, so the accident wasn't too far from where she already lives. It's not like she went across state or something to give blood. Who would, right? But Gemini is associated with the 3rd house, which is short distance travel, Mars and Gemini. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see more of these, but it's so interesting that she obviously gave blood, and then this happened, and again, she survived. We also know that we are in Aries season. Currently, the sun is in Aries, Venus is in Aries. So there is that Mars, Aries, bold, direct, kind of, we're just going to see things happen a little bit more impulsively and blatantly around this time. Now, we gotta talk about Lil Nas X. So first of all, I'm gonna be very clear. One, I'm not a fan. I don't really know much about him. I know that I'd heard like he was the country. He was let me see real quick what it was. I know that he had a song out that it was a country song. But at first they were trying to say like it wasn't a country song because he's, because he's black, or, and then, I think Billy Ray Cyrus came out and was like, no, accept this as a country song. I believe that was how the story went. However, that's not the point. The point is that's what he's mostly known for. However, his most recent video has a lot of what people are saying is, look at it. I haven't watched it. I'm not going to watch it, but satanic. You see the picture of the video. It's a lot of satanic imagery. So the biggest headline was the blood shoes. So these are the Nikes. Nike actually is going to sue him because what happened was he came out with the shoes. They are a version of the Nikes. You see the Nike symbol, but they're customized. And you see here, they have the pentagram. You see here, they also have apparently a drop of human blood. Let me explain to you. They have not told us who's the blood from. I mean, blood is a bonding agent. So for those, those of you who know. So I don't know. And so regardless of that, what I initially thought, this is why I tell people, get your intuition up as well. A lot of times people be like, I'm going on a date, I got to know his birth sign. I got to know his birth chart. No, you don't. Observe a person. You observe a person long enough. That's going to help you develop your intuition, because you're not always going to have a birth chart in front of you. You're not always going to have a book in front of you. So though those things are important, I always tell people, like, you also have to see if you're right, right? How much it's so confirming when you have an insight and you're right, because you have learned to develop and listen to your intuition. That's going to help you a lot through life. It's logic and spirituality. It's not just because, tell me everything about yourself. Tell me everything. You already know everything, right? Like, you now know what this person has told you, but your intuition might help you pick up on things you didn't. My point with the intuition was, the minute I heard this, so again, I don't know much about Lil Nas X. He's not in my generation. I don't really, I don't listen to him, but so, when I first heard about the shoes, so I'd heard of him before, the country song or whatever. Didn't know much more about him. A lot more is coming out. There's actually some allegations of some disturbing tweets that people are saying is one of his old accounts. Actually is happening as well. But anyway, with the shoes, what happened was, initially what I thought when I read the story, I was like, again, I don't know anything about his background. I'm like, he has to be under 25. He's under 25. And again, not because he looked young or anything like that, because people can look younger or older than their age. It's because the impulsivity in which, I know he had changed his image. So if you look at the image of his video, it looks pretty, and again, I'm not here to talk about the topic of Satanism and whether this and that. That's not the point of this video. Yeah, he looked very, very, different. And so I was like, wait a minute. That's interesting to change so quickly, because I remember him with the cowboy hat and all of that, and to see the image he has now. And I'm like, that's a very youthful thing to do. And again, being under 25, it's not a slight, but that is the time in your life where you're going to see people shift quicker. Whereas with for example, a Kanye West, you saw with Kanye West, it was more of a transformation over time of him changing a little bit. You see what I'm saying? Because he was older. So people who are older, when they're trying to change their image, you're going to notice it's more gradual, because they're like, there's a different mindset there. When you're young, you're more impulsive. You have more time to play around with your image, I suppose. But I would say that the image that he came out as and what he is portraying now does look very, very different over a short period of time. Not only did I think it was under 20, he is under 25, he's 21. His birthday is April 9th, 1999. Not only that, youthful, that youthful energy, I was like, but that's very impulsive, that's very bold. That's a very bold move with these shoes. I looked it up. I was like, this is impulsive. This is bold. Aries. He's an Aries. It's Aries season. Venus in Aries. Venus is also money and value. So, I mean, I don't know if some of these people do have people on their team who are astrologers, or they pay attention to it, but would be the best time for him to do this. I'm not saying I don't agree with it, but because it's the timing allows for the energy to be on him. The sun is already in Aries. He has Jupiter in Aries. So the sun and the spotlight is on him. Apparently the shoe sold out in under a minute. The issue though is these are not officially Nikes. And Nike had to say, they have nothing to do with this. This is not an official release of theirs. It's not a partnership. I believe Nas X came out and apologized, but then Nike is still planning to sue him. Perhaps. We'll see where it goes with that. Because it's not a part of their image. And that's a company. They have to protect their brand. So whether or not some of y'all might agree or someone wants the sneakers or not, he was maybe better off using his own sneaker, making his own sneaker. That way you don't have to worry about that. Now, his Mercury in Pisces, which I thought was interesting, because I'm like, that's usually a gentle approach in this person's conversation, or in the way in which they approach things. It's more, poetic, it's more whimsical in some way. But, he does have this other influence in his chart. And again, a lot of your placements might not feel, you might not see the full range of someone at a certain age. 21 is very young. It's still very young. He, is trying to figure out life, experimenting, whatever that 21-year-olds do. I do think you're going to find less and less people, famous people, lying about their age nowadays because of astrology. And because you have it, my opinion on mainstream stuff and how people dumb it down and how people make it for ego. That's the problem with mainstream. Mainstream astrology makes it for ego and arguing about your sign. It's counterproductive. It doesn't really help you manifest anything to be arguing about signs. But the point is a lot more people are into it. So you're going to see more celebrities giving out their birth chart information, or celebrities sharing it because more people are into it. And, you can't lie. You can lie about your age, but then it doesn't help your chart. Venus and Taurus, he cares about, I think part of it was shock value and, money. But also if we look here, Uranus and Aquarius, also what I said, listen, this Uranus and Aquarius generation, I've done charts for some of y'all. Uranus and Aquarius, it is like a defined type of energy, and he's in Aries in the first place. So it's defiance. Uranus and Aquarius energy is almost like, I'm going to be different just to sometimes push against what's already established. Uranus and Aquarius energy, generation does kind of push the boundaries of things, does seem to try to, counteract anything that was like normal or there before. As you remember, Aquarius is different than Capricorn, which also shares that rulership with Saturn, right? Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius in the modern context. So Uranus and Aquarius people, it's going to be more noticeable when they do something different out of the norm. They're, standing out positively sometimes as well. But sometimes you do have some people, and again, you would have to look at the chart, the degree and all that to see, is it a positive difference or is it a negative difference? In general, I think, he wanted to push the envelope. He wanted to push the boundaries. He wanted to push something and, do something no one else has ever done. I think that's probably what, the influence here was. I do think that, his team most likely right now, they're regrouping, right? They're talking about whether they're going to rebrand. This is just my insight. This is my intuition with this. They're going to see, do they need to rebrand him, or are they going to keep, that's why all you heard from him is the apology recently. They're talking about, are they going to keep moving in this direction? Because that new video was a very different direction than that first video he had, okay? Because, he's still very young, and, usually, if you're a musician, you gotta wait a few years to reinvent yourself. Honestly, y'all look at history, you probably want to stay in that mode for a little bit. But again, he has this Uranus and Aquarius energy, this Aries energy. So there's this, he's not going, part of him might not even listen to people. He's just going to say and do what he wants to do. But that's likely what's going on right now, because changing up very quickly, doing things sporadically without a plan sometimes isn't the best option down the road. So we'll see how that unfolds. All right. Next. Well, we have to also talk about this. There are other astrologers who have talked about this in a different way. But they've really brought to the surface this idea of Mars and Gemini square Neptune and Pisces. Now, why is a square important? Remember, a square is tension. It is not cohesive energy. The energy does not go really well together, right? Because what's happening here is, we know that Mars and Gemini is about action through thought, right? Action through some sort of, it is very impulsive, but it's usually through the thought process. People can change their mind very easily. An astrologer that, has, he's more traditional leanings, I believe, Akuta Bava. He has a video about this on Mercury and Pisces square Mars and Gemini, where he talks about it. If you're interested in knowing more about that transit in general. I'm talking about it right now just for this topic here, like senseless acts, delusion, carrying ideas with no direction. Mars and Gemini by itself is not a problem. I'm not saying if you are Mars and Gemini that you have issues or anything like that. What I'm saying is that it's squaring Neptune, which is our illusions, our idealism. And so a square is tension. So you could have people, you've heard a lot lately about senseless acts of violence. Actions are being carried out based on thoughts that don't take reality into consideration. You might have seen, you're starting to see an uptick in these events, these tragic events happening. Again, I'm not saying it's not about blaming astrology. It's saying that astrology could sometimes influence people's action at specific moments in time. So I want us to be clear. I'm not saying this is the thing that caused it. No, the person caused it, but this energy around kind of maybe influences these types of acts. Consider how Mars and Aries is prepared for real battle. Right? That Mars and Aries energy is suited up. It's ready to go. Mars and Sag fights for a cause. Mars and Capricorn, it's exalted. So these are just examples of what Mars does. But Mars and Capricorn is strategic in what it's going to do. Right? It's doing it for a goal. When you're doing something for a goal, you're less likely to do something that doesn't have any actual, point, or something that is not actually going to bring about any type of success. Mars does not naturally fit in Gemini. That's not a problem. There are plenty of Mars and Gemini people that have great placements and it works for them. But what we're talking about right now is this transit that Mars and Gemini recently made that square to Neptune. So that's just something to be aware of. Now, lastly, Pluto in Capricorn. At the end of this next month, right? So April, end of April, I believe the 28th. I have to go back and look, but I believe the 28th, 27th, something like that. Pluto is going in retrograde in Capricorn. It's already in Capricorn, right? Pluto's been in Capricorn for a while. What you may see at that time, a lot of pushback against certain authority figures or laws that people have created. You already are starting to see the beginning of that with the Georgia voting laws that they're putting into place, and just how that is gaining a lot of conversation, a lot of traction with that topic. Any laws that have passed recently with the retrograde, it's a stalling of something. It's almost a reevaluation. It's instead of going direct, something stands still in order for you to, and sometimes a retrograde doesn't always have to be bad, though it can disrupt a process. Sometimes you do learn something through that process. You know what I mean? It's like if at any point in your life that you thought you were going, and then something kind of pauses something and you're frustrated at the time, but it actually allows you to evaluate something and look at it in a different way. So the other reason why this could potentially happen is Saturn is still in Aquarius. And people, when Saturn is in Aquarius, as I said in the other video, the first video I made about Saturn and Aquarius is they want to make laws for the group. They want to put structure in for the group. You see this already in society for the past several months. People are doing things, or putting certain things in motion and giving certain directives and saying, this is for everybody, this is for the group. Whereas Jupiter in Aquarius is, I'm going to shed light on this. We're going to shed light on situations and what the group actually needs through knowledge and things of that nature. So Saturn in Aquarius and Jupiter in Aquarius have been pushing together, or, making that type of energy that we've been seeing. Jupiter's in Aquarius until May. Then it goes into Pisces. For some of y'all, that could be a really good time to because remember, Jupiter is the original ruler of Pisces. So I think for some people, it's going to be a good and enlightening time. For some people, it's spiritual type of experience. For others, for other people, more of doing what you dream. We'll talk about that once we get there. But Jupiter in Pisces, you could see Jupiter's in Pisces and Saturn's in Aquarius at that time. What you might see then, remember, Pluto's still in Capricorn in retrograde. Don't be surprised if there's another call for unity. If something happens or occurs from a power structure dynamic where people have to come together, don't be surprised if they have to really reevaluate something, focusing on a universal human need. So I wouldn't be surprised if this energy at that time, produces that type of effect. Just pay attention to what happens during that time. Pay attention to anything different, new, anything that is deviating, because typically that means there's some type of energy that is now shifted or changed into a new sign. So that was it for this edition. Please take a chance to actually cut that out. That's it for this edition. Thank you for watching.